on him. Extort shit, bully the flow on him.
Persona 5 makes me angry, and it's not in the way that you think. So we all know Persona 5, or at least I'm assuming that most of us do. We all know how great it is, again, assuming, how sleek the aesthetics are, the friendships and bonds made between the characters, but for those few that are out of the loop, Persona 5 is the 5th installment of the RPG series Persona. Developed by the homies at Atlus, it's actually a spin-off from their main series, Shin Megami Tensei. Its first release actually being Revelations Persona from all the way back in 1996. Actually, if you want to get really nerdy, it's technically 1994, as its initial conception was from a game called SMT If, but that was more of a bare bones idea and was not only very well received for its quality, but mostly its setting, being in high school, as well as the characters and gameplay. It begged for a sequel, or at least a spiritual successor. And that successor ended up being Revelations Persona, a series which would refine what made If so great, and after a bunch of sequels, fighting games, dancing spin-offs, brings us to Persona 5. Now, this is the first Persona game I ever played, probably like so many others. The only real experience I ever had with the series was with SMT4 back in 2013 when it first came out. At the time, I was buying almost every major release for the 3DS with the poverty wage that I was making, so I was already going to buy this game, but Nintendo was actually running a promotion with their Club Nintendo service. Yes, Club Nintendo, a once amazing service that is no longer up and running. It was basically a rewards program where every physical copy of a game included a code, and if your account was connected to Club Nintendo, every digital game purchase could be registered on your account, where you could get trash like digital wallpapers or meme games, but if you saved enough you could actually get some really cool prizes, and if you spent enough you could actually hit elite status. Basically a Nintendo Glazer award. That's right, don't talk to me if you're not elite. But they would reward the glazing with some free prizes towards the end of the year. And it was honestly the nicest way I've ever seen a game company reward their fans for their loyalty. So the promotion. The promotion I had mentioned earlier was basically if you had purchased Fire Emblem Awakening, my favorite 3DS game, and Shin Megami Tensei 4, and had both games registered before August 31st, Nintendo would give you $30 in eShop credit. That's $40 in today's Joe Biden economy. I was already going to buy the game, but now I was even more curious because Nintendo was really promoting it, and it actually ended up being a very crazy experience all around. Like, it was basically Pokemon, but with demons that you could negotiate with, and you had to get them to fight for you, as well as being able to fuse them to make more powerful demons. Think Yokai Watch, but for grown-ups, and holy difficulty. This game is really hard. The first boss is truly a gatekeeper in video games, but very good game. The music was so good.
Just listen to some of this and it'll blow that poppy trash music right out of your head. Wait. Oh man, that's like the best part. Really?
And I considered myself a fan of the series after playing it, and with Persona 5 on the horizon, I couldn't wait. As a trailer would be dropping towards the end of the year with the release date being 2014, but man, they were pretty optimistic as they would later announce that the game would be delayed to the following year. But at least it was announced for PS4 as well, so that's some good news I guess. But again, at TGS that following year, the creative director, please forgive me, Katsura Hashino, would reassure us that the game just needed a little more time to cook, which it did end up releasing, but for Japan only, so the rest of us would have to wait until Valentine's Day, or at least that's what they told us, just for them to break our hearts one final time. But Atlus assured us that this would be the last refire, as Japan may have had the first taste, but everyone else got their slice on April 4th, and we were finally able to get our hands on it, and man, what a game. This game is so cool. The characters, the cutscenes, the music is on a whole nother level. Even the menus are dripping in style. And that's the menus, dude. This game is like confident, almost like it's bragging, and the game itself is just incredible. Like I said, I had never played a Persona game before this, and everything in this game is just that ish. I was never expecting to like the game as much as I did too, especially as the month before the Switch and Breath of the Wild released, and that was a game that I put hundreds of hours in and was a landmark for games, at least in my opinion. And to follow that game up with this, I was big chilling. Being a high school kid in Japan with all my friends, taking down stupid ass adults, plundering treasure with the homies, what more could you ask for? Atlas somehow figured out how to make one of the most addicting gameplay loops simply out of the monotony of life, but this isn't why the game frustrates me. Existential crisis maybe, but... Persona 5 frustrates the hell out of me because it highlights how important time management is when it comes to life. Yeah, it's just a game, but sometimes games really parallel real life, and the parallels can be very accurate. Even if it's exaggerated, it's scary. I mean, you're just taking up the role of a high school student in Japan, which I'm not, nor ever was. No, it's not having to go to school. That's not what's frustrating. And no, it's not having a curfew that's set by a cat, or having adults be assholes. I don't think that ever stops, to be honest. It's the damn public transportation, and hear me out. Traveling in Persona 5. So one part of the game deals with discovering new locations, which you can find out about through character arcs, reading books and magazines, or by simply just playing the game. Which is okay, a lot of games do that. But what makes me mad is that because in order to get to half of those places, you have to take the high-speed tram. Please stay with me. And because this game mirrors life so much, at least to me, it got me thinking, when you have access to good public transportation, you're honestly in such an advantaged state. But this isn't about Japan's transportation, I'm talking about any city or country that has good public transport as compared to my dumbass state. Now, I probably lost half of you as you probably clicked on this video expecting me to talk about how bosses or levels could be frustrating, or how it's weird that you can date your teacher, or how the PS5 version requires another $70 and is a separate version to the already upgraded version of the game, and there's no free PS4 to PS5 upgrade if you purchase that game. So no matter what, even if you bought the upgraded version, you have to buy it again.
That's the way she goes. That's what I said. That's right. It's the way she goes. Sometimes she goes, sometimes it doesn't. She didn't go. It's the way she goes.
No, it's not any matter of how annoying or weird or anti-consumer this game can be. That's not the issue. It's that sometimes you get lucky enough to get a seat on the tram, and when you do, you have the option to read if you have a book or magazine. And the fact that this is strategy for a video game, it just brought on a whole nother existential crisis. Sure, this is a game, but Japan is really like that. New York, Chicago, all their transportation is miles ahead of where I live. If Italy looks like a boot, I live in America's PP. No. I live in America's gun. No. It's both. Yeah, we're talking about Florida. It's both. So disclaimer to some of you city folk, y'all might not understand how blessed you actually are, but for people from Florida as well as California and any states or cities that are plagued with bad transportation, this one's for you. Like I was saying, the main aspect of Persona's gameplay is time management. So you cannot waste any time, otherwise you'll be behind schedule, as every day is extremely valuable. And if you are unable to accomplish what needs to get done in a timely manner, you can either put yourself in a really tough position, stressing on finishing sooner or last second, or you might lose the game if you weren't fast enough, so time is of the essence. Like because you didn't finish a palace and decided to mess around with the girls, or played too many video games.
That's not enough time!
As the game only allows you to do 2 things every day, but most days, half of them are taken up because you're in school. So it's like, great, there goes half the day, just like in real life. But you still have access to a lot of things regardless of half the day missing. Like, yeah, it's exaggerated because it's a game, so you can continuously go to different parts without having time move forward. But the fact that you can even get to all these places that are far away with it only costing a few buckies, like, I can't do that here. Like, how many times would I have been able to study for a test just a bit longer without having to focus on driving? Being able to stay out later knowing that I'll have a way home no matter what? Even reading a book or a magazine on the way home like in the game. Sure, we do have audiobooks, but even experiencing other great RNG events that only real life can bring. You'd never be able to, or at least not without the stress of driving, surviving, and parking, and let alone having to pay for gas and upkeep, insurance, and other scams. The truly frustrating part is that I could have actually lived the life of a Japanese high schooler just in Florida if we had a tram, and the thing is, my state was actually supposed to get one, like the most recent failed attempt being the Florida high-speed corridor. Now, here's some Florida lore for you guys. I remember back in 2011, how long ago was that?
Make it stop!
Florida was actually in talks about getting a high-speed rail, which I thought was going to be amazing, especially since I'm basically Floridian, but I was born in New York and I spent a lot of my youth visiting my family members that lived up there, so I was well aware of how much better the public transportation could be. So this news made me beyond ecstatic because it was supposed to be from Tampa to Orlando to Miami. It was supposedly going to cost $2.4 billion, but it was going to be covered by the government, so it would have cost the state nothing, and it would have actually had created jobs. But I'm pretty sure some secret lobbying led to our governor not only rejecting the plan because he didn't want taxpayers covering any additional costs.
I believe the risk far outweighs the benefits.
Despite the federal government giving the state $2.4 billion, which would cover the projected costs.
But at the same time, he was making a push for more automobile plants, so why invest in a tram? Interesting. I mean, he eventually passed the tram system, but it was only from Miami to Orlando. Plus, it didn't stop at Disney or the Orlando airport like originally planned. And we'll come back to this because, dude, Disney, bro. Anyways, taxpayers had to vote and pay for it instead of the government funding. Allegedly, this project cost was about $1,047 million. And it ended up going over $180 million regardless. And to top it all off, it's not even a high-speed rail. Yeah, I know that we do have other lines, like the most popular one right now is probably the Bright Line. A very bougie line, but they seem to at least understand presentation. But unfortunately, Bright Line is also not a high-speed rail, as it only has 5 stops and goes from Miami to Orlando without stopping at the airport or Disney again. Oh, Disney. Why am I whining about Disney? It's not because I'm one of those weird adults that actually cannot grow up. No. It's that even before these lines, there was a chance for one to pass in the late 90s called the Florida Overland Express, or FOX for short.
Fox? Die.
And it was even going to go from Tampa to Orlando to Miami, with hopes to expand to even more cities like Daytona and even Atlanta. But what the mouse got to do with it? Well, apparently it was going to make a stop at Universal.
You mean like at Universal Studios? Cha-ching.
As well as Disney, and well, Mickey didn't like that one bit as it would start dipping into the mouse's cheese. So of course they were against it, and proposed a different line and lobbied for the one that would skip Universal altogether. How did Universal take this? They retaliated by lobbying against the new line, because why should Disney be the only ones to take our money? So although I don't agree with it, I can understand it, but man, I'm pretty sure our favorite cousin, who was the governor at the time, would have probably denied it anyways because he likely also had automobile groups in his wallet. But man, the Fox line was going to be pretty impressive. Like, it was supposed to get you from Orlando to Miami in an hour and a half, and Orlando to Tampa in like 49 minutes. While I was doing research for this, I actually stumbled upon this video that was like a demonstration of how the line would work, as well as just a super exaggerated version of what the future could have been like in Florida. And I won't show you the entire thing, but just look at this. Like, this JIT is playing Virtual Boy, so you know they had a really positive outlook on the future. I mean, they kind of got that right.
Wow, I got 1,500 points. All right, good boy.
Done.
Is Mickey on the train?
No, honey, but he's waiting for us in Orlando.
This is basically what Brightline is, it's just not a high-speed rail, as well as it doesn't go as far and it costs so much more. When I think about my life in this game, that's why Persona 5 makes me mad.
In the year 2007, while the rest of North America examines the success of the Florida Overland Express, the fouling of our air and increasing demands on our highway system continue. Except in Florida, where logic prevailed.